Collectors were out early this morning. For those forgetting to turn their clocks back, it was a case of beating the official 8 a.m. start. In Lake Macquarie, the Mayor joined community members to make Australia clean.
If all the world was just rubbish, well, it wouldn't be a very nice place to swim and walk and stuff.
It wouldn't be nice if everyone was just walking on rubbish.
As for the rubbish, bottles and papers, it seems, weren't the only items making up the bulk of the collection.
We collected 8 bags with our family and I think 6 of them are full of plastic. It's really awful.
Any surprises in what you picked up?
Oh, the odd one or two, yes.
Such as?
So a couple of syringes.
Throughout Lake Macquarie, 110 sites have been set up. That makes it the largest community-based clean-up in Australia. In Newcastle, one group took a novel approach to the clean-up task, their efforts also uncovering some syringes. Around 30 community groups helped out at the 92 clean-up sites around the city. This year, community groups were given an added incentive, a $1,000 prize to the group with the most members participating.
We've had people that have come out of their own suburbs to come to problem areas such as Carrington and Mayfield.
Newcastle directly benefits from the change through a doubling of staff.
About 13 or 14 will be based in or reporting to Newcastle, and the size of the Newcastle operation will almost double. I think it goes from 12 to 23.
The Minister says there's also plans to establish district offices throughout the state.
There'll be one in Singleton to deal with the environmental problems mainly of the mining industry in the Upper Hunter, one on the Central Coast to deal with the urbanisation and industrialisation that's happening there, and then one on the far north coast, probably at Murwillumbah.
Mr Moore also announced a total catchment management committee for Lake Macquarie, also under the jurisdiction of the Environmental Protection Authority. The lake provided the backdrop for a briefing by the Minister of the 19-member committee, which consists of representatives from community groups, local councils and government departments. The committee's charge will be protection of Australia's largest saltwater lake and its catchment areas against surrounding development.
Every time we build new houses in the catchment, we accelerate the rate of runoff. We add to the nutrient load with our gardens and our pets. We add to the sedimentation every time we turn a piece of dirt over.
The committee is expected to meet for the first time within the next few weeks. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. Today's visit to the Stewart Centre and centres like it is to become a familiar scene over the next 12 months for this year's Miss Australia Suzanne Lee and the Quest's highest fundraiser Maria Baroni. Their mission is to raise the profile of the Spastic Centre and open the community's eyes to the world of people with disabilities. The senior class at the Stewart Centre was more than willing to give them some first-hand experience.
People are people are people, and that certainly hasn't changed. But what I have discovered is that with people with disabilities, certainly societal attitudes tend to sometimes segregate people with disabilities, or they're just unaware.
Sharing this knowledge with the community and dispelling the myths associated with beauty pageants is the 27-year-old's priority.
We try and concentrate on young women's achievements as opposed to what a person may look like. It certainly doesn't involve that at all.
Maria's involvement had special motivation.
We've got a member in one of my sponsors, the Italian Affair Committee, whose son has got cerebral palsy, and that's what we're trying to do this year to raise funds. And also my brother-in-law has got a cousin with cerebral palsy.
Maria and Suzanne will spend 2 more days in Newcastle. Their next stop is Canberra. Catherine Lamond, NBN News. Father Bromley now heads the church he started in Australia some 4 years ago. His appointment was made by Archbishop Lewis from the movement's headquarters in America. Father Bromley describes his church as an alternative to the Anglican Church.
Well, the Anglican Church is a Protestant church and we're a Catholic church. That is to say, although we don't acknowledge the jurisdiction of the Pope and certain other liturgical practices that they might have developed, we do acknowledge the basis of the Catholic religion.
Father Bromley is based at St Hilda's Church in Teralba, west of Lake Macquarie, but also looks after Sydney and Taree parishes. While the church is relatively young, its attitude to women priests is firmly set.
We certainly encourage women in ministry, but biologically there's no such thing as a woman priest.
There are currently 400 Anglican Catholic parishes worldwide. Australia has 14, 8 of those in northern New South Wales. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
Maitland High School, the do-it-yourself school. Take 2 old run-down industrial arts rooms, a lick of paint, a few metres of carpet. Lo and behold, you have 2 brand spanking new computer rooms.
The Department of Education gave us some money, obviously not enough to cover the entire cost, but basically we reduced the cost by using community members and people from the school.
A fanfare today at the official opening of the new computer centre. The rooms will cater for 600 students. Oh, by the way, the metalwork class still came in handy. The bars on the windows, courtesy of some security-conscious students. Still on students, Maitland Pool was alive today, the Hunter Zone Swimming Carnival. The zone covering Taree, Merriwa and Newcastle. The winners go on to the State Championships in Sydney at the end of the month. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
And it's the middle distances that Newcastle's trio of Jenny Collins, Fiona McCarthy and Simon Atkins will attack. Fiona the 800 metres and Simon the 400 metres. And Jenny will also pitch headlong into the demanding 400. With a third in the Australian under-20 titles last year, a personal best of 54.9 to her credit, plus a win in this year's state 400 metres, Jenny is expected to do well. But with so many athletes aiming for Spain, she will be happy to make the final 8.
Considering it's the Olympic year, I suppose a lot of the athletes will be trying to run qualifying times for Barcelona. So, but I've got a chance of making it into the final, so if I could do that, it would be fantastic.
For the 20-year-old, the next Commonwealth Games may be a more realistic goal.
The qualifying time wouldn't be as strict, so maybe 2 years' time, with a lot of hard work, it all might come together.
Jenny, all the very best. Thanks for talking to me.
On Your Mark is the first production of the year for the Hunter Regional Dance Company, and final rehearsals are now underway in preparation for Thursday's opening performance. The production follows the path of an Olympic athlete as he strives for excellence. His perseverance and dedication are tested along the way, in this scene by the junk food siren.
Not all of the action happens in reality. Some of it may be in the athlete's mind, some of the things that may tempt him off his course of training.
The company sees the production as a tribute to modern athletes.
Came from a concern that there wasn't sort of any local content for the Olympics, so we thought we'd bring a bit of the Olympics to Newcastle.
Following Thursday's opening performance at Western Suburbs Leagues Club, the show will travel to Gosford and then to Bathurst and Orange.
At a special council meeting last night, there was only one item on the agenda, the appointment of a new general manager to replace the retired town clerk, Barry Lewis. But that one item caused the meeting to drag on for almost 4 hours as Alderman Tate and Sutton bitterly opposed the process used to select the new council boss. Of the 60 who applied for the top job, only the one successful candidate was presented to the full council, prompting the two aldermen to slam the process as secretive. Alderman Tate's criticisms of secrecy heated up when his colleagues successfully moved to meet the still unnamed candidate in camera and away from the public eye. From behind closed doors, there was a fleeting glimpse of the man who late in the night was appointed general manager. He is 46-year-old William Grant, whose former positions include the town clerk of Gosford City Council and second in charge at Warringah Shire Council. Mr Grant said he was unavailable for an interview today. The new GM is to be paid $140,000 annually on a 5-year performance-based contract. Alderman Sutton asserts the salary package is beyond the council's means.
People all around the city are being asked for restraint. It's not a time to be affording large salary increases, and that's what this would be.
But the Lord Mayor says Mr Grant is worth every cent.
He's the best in Australia, so he's worth that, and he will make a contribution in pushing the council and driving the council. That's what I want. I want something to drive the place forward.
Newcastle ratepayers are up for more than just the general manager's salary. Alderman Sutton believes the search for the right candidate has cost about $50,000. And until Mr Grant begins work in April, the retired Barry Lewis will stay on as the town clerk on a retainer of more than $2,000 a week. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Dr Smythe's plans to turn Wallsend Hospital into a private nursing home are well underway. Expressions of interest have been called from organisations which would like to run it, and architects have been looking over the site. Dr Smythe's only barrier is the community picket line. Today he invited a small delegation to discuss the matter with him. Barbara Hards from the picket line says there were no winners, and it seems the standoff will continue.
We wanted a public hospital, and that's what we're hanging out for, not a nursing home.
Despite their resolve, Dr Smythe believes he will have a nursing home operating on the site within 9 months. As for the picket line, he says he's ruled out taking legal action to have them removed.
And some people have said to me in Newcastle, said, Tim Smythe, how come you are so patient with a picket line? Well, why don't you take them to court and get some sort of injunction? Well, that's not my style, and I don't think that really solves the problem.
Dr Smythe hopes to find some middle ground with supporters of the hospital.
And that's the process that I'm undertaking, that we find some way in which the people on the picket line can say to themselves and to the Wallsend community the struggle's been worth it, that they've achieved something.
Pre-season form isn't much of a guide as to how a year in rugby league can pan out, and the Knights will be hoping this is the case as they head into their final trial against Canberra at Marathon Stadium on Sunday at 3. A loss to the Magpies in the Challenge Cup and a real up and down showing against the Bears last weekend doesn't give the coaches or the players much to go on, hence the vital match on Sunday.
It is an important one. It's our last trial, which will be the final dress rehearsal for the season. We've still got things to get in order after our last couple of games, and we've still got players to try and all that sort of thing. But once it's out of the way, I think we'll be pretty much ready to get down to the business of 2 points every week.
One of the areas that has come in for criticism so early in the season is the lack of opportunities the backs are getting, although against North for 25 minutes they saw almost too much. We were promised attacking football. Are the Knights going to deliver?
You've got to earn the right to throw it wide, but without going too in-depth into it and giving away anything, we're looking to throw it wide, and we've got to score a lot more points than we did last year to compete with the sides like Canberra and Manly and the sides who score a lot of points. So we're very sound defensively, and we'll be working on the attack, and we'll be throwing the ball around for sure.
And for one of the most feared forwards in the business, 1992 is special.
Yeah, well, I had a disappointing season last year. A couple of things didn't go quite right for me, but I'd like to try and get the club back on the track, and on a personal level also probably make up for ground I lost last year.
From the opening moments, the Breakers attacked relentlessly. Their one-touch football, some of the best of the season. Brad Maloney was proving a handful up front, the crowd on their feet over a couple of mishaps in the penalty area. Melbourne Croatia were stung into action, Gibson a fine save. And after being shut out of the game for 37 minutes, Francis Awera Tiffy broke loose. Where they may have lapsed into error coming from behind in the past, no such thing last night. Kosh equalising 7 minutes later. One all at the break, the second half belonged to the locals. Kosh working well up front, Heddle controlling the midfield, and Merida's shot finished off brilliantly by Maloney. Even when called on to defend, everything fell at the Breakers' feet. And the all-out assault by Bruce Dowell's boys proved a real handful. And from the corner, Craig Moffat's header made it 3-1. Wave after wave of red and blue Breakers surged towards goal. Heddle's header hammered wide. And Brad Maloney forcing the save of the night. And the youngster was rewarded with his second 5 minutes from time. A well-deserved win for Newcastle. The final score, the BHP Breakers 4, Melbourne Croatia 1.
As an advocate of the ordination of women priests, Bishop Holland had postponed his retirement to campaign for the women priests of the Newcastle Diocese.
We're absolutely delighted. It needed this sort of breakthrough, and I think it will now demonstrate to the whole church that the discrimination that we've had against women for centuries has now been broken.
It's hoped today's ordinations will accelerate the campaign in this area.
There's no doubt what's happened in Perth will be an opening and making easier for us to follow.
While Newcastle savours its Best City in Australia title, a large gathering at the Lord Mayor's second annual prayer breakfast was out to show the city is also a spiritual centre. The function promoted Break Free 92, an upcoming Christian crusade to win the hearts and minds of a nation. Along with sausages and eggs, there was a healthy serving of faith among the church, business and community leaders gathered to hear guest speaker Mrs Barbara McKay, wife of murdered anti-drugs campaigner Donald McKay. Break Free 92, to be held in May, is a 3-week series of concerts, rallies and visits to prisons and industries. Youth events and seminars will discuss unemployment, drugs, alcohol, sexual and physical abuse. There was a strong showing in the city to mark International Women's Day.
We think that this is perhaps the post-feminist era and women have achieved equality. I think that the indication is that that is not the case.
The young woman has given police a good description of her attacker. The man is aged in his mid-20s, 165 centimetres in height, of muscular build with long brown hair. Police say the man wearing a balaclava forced the woman into a car on Willow Road, Gateshead at midday yesterday. She was pushed into the back seat of the car, blindfolded and her hands tied behind her back. The young woman was driven to bushland where she was sexually assaulted. She was again blindfolded and bound, forced into the car and driven around for several hours before being dumped on the Pacific Highway at Bennett's Green.
It was fairly violent, or forceful more than violent. It was fairly traumatic for her.
Police are seeking assistance from the public to help locate the vehicle used in the abduction.
The person has been driving in a old-style vehicle. At this stage it's covered with brown and green undercoat and has mag wheels.
The annual event puts the town in a spin. The prawns and the crowds seem to get bigger. Beside all the fun of the fair, the main attraction is the prawn eating contest, split into 2 categories. First up are a group of celebrity seafood and wine experts, including NBN's resident crustacean cruncher, Ray Deneen. It was an unusually polite affair, the contestants accompanied by dinner music. The tempo picked up for the World Championship, a truly international event. Where have you come from today?
I've come from America, from the state of Connecticut, and I've come all the way for the famous prawn eating contest here in the Tea Gardens.
Try as they might, most competitors couldn't come close to 6-time winner Fred Monk's record for downing a kilo of prawns in just over 4 minutes.
Straight they go, Gold Dolphin is clear. Coppermite is the one giving chase down the outside with Sapristi, and Talago has started to come home pretty well with Party Mood, but Gold Dolphin is nicely clear of Coppermite and Sapristi, and then came Talago, Party Mood, but it's all Gold Dolphin, and Gold Dolphin blitzes them, scores by the best part of 4 lengths on Coppermite. Talago got third just in advance of...
Gold Dolphin far too good for the rest. Coppermite was second, with Talago filling the minor placing. In the same city last night, the Tamworth Pacers Derby over the long journey of 2,360 metres was a triumph for a star in the making, Sally Torres. Sally was brilliant in guiding her charge to another all-the-way win. Kawara attacked the winner in 3 minutes 0.93 from Barley Boy and Big Mal. On Friday night, Tamworth recognised the deeds of its sports people at the annual Tamworth Sports Awards. Lawn bowler Jason Douglas was named the Sports Star of the Year. Sky Furno the Junior Award for her deeds on the golf course. Eileen Killen has devoted a lifetime to the same sport. The Northern Inland Credit Union Tamworth Frogs named the Senior Team of the Year. Farah Agricultural High the Junior Team. Peter Lawler the Coach of the Year, and the Tamworth City BMX Club won the Sports Development Award.
The Tweed Valley Hospitals Action Committee held a meeting in Murwillumbah yesterday. Spokesman Jade Hurley has called on local member Don Beck to obtain a guarantee from the government that the hospitals will remain public. Last September, bed numbers were reduced in the Mari Smith and children's wards at Murwillumbah Hospital. The committee wants the government to reopen these beds. It has also called on Don Beck to acknowledge receipt of a petition he received last October, in which more than 7,500 people registered their protest against health cuts. Police believe the training exercise was an ideal opportunity to again search the bush thoroughly. Colleen Walker was last seen on the 15th of September 1990. SES and Bushfire Brigade volunteers, the Army and the police took part in the search.
We've got 8 teams actually on the Congarini Road with police in amongst them, and we have a second team up working on the old disused tip area, and they're assisted by the Army Reserve personnel.
Several animal bones were found during the training exercise, but the disappearance of Colleen Walker remains a mystery. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
There has been some criticism about junior tennis development in Australia, but the sport is alive and well in the north of the state. 280 players ranging from 10 to 18 years of age braved miserable conditions and a variety of playing surfaces in the second round of the Far North Coast McDonald Satellite Circuit at Lismore. So popular was the tournament that 43 courts were used at Ballina and Alstonville as well as Lismore. The winners of the 4-round championship will go to Armidale in August for the Champion of Champions event. And at Taree, the first round of the Lower North Coast McDonald Satellite event got underway, and yes, you guessed it, record entries here too, with 180 aspiring champions hoping to win a place in the finals at Armidale. While still in Taree, plenty of action on the Manning River and the final round of the Central District's Rowing Championship. 80 oars men and women from 3 clubs and 2 schools were chasing vital points in the last few events. Going into the final round, the Hunter Club led Manning River Rowing Club by 73 points. And the host club are at the top of their form with a stunning win in the Open Fours. Starting 17 seconds in arrears of the other crews, the boys from Taree rode like Olympians to snatch a dramatic victory, but in the final wash-up it wasn't enough to bridge the gap on Hunter, and Hunter held on to their lead in the series to sneak home by 7 points.
The Central Coast Red Cross decided the conga was just the attention grabber they needed to launch the annual Red Cross calling appeal. With conga queen Jeannie Little leading the way and Terry Willisey in the ranks, the record attempt set off to nowhere in particular, anxious to collect all the hangers-on it could. The Australian record of almost 4,000 remained disappointingly out of reach, with just over 100 taking part. But the Red Cross did get a chance to highlight its fundraising appeal. The door knock begins next weekend. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
Spears Point Park was the venue for the launch with a 6-hour variety concert and the presentation of the Premier's Awards to seniors who make remarkable contributions to society. The efforts of an army of volunteers form a foundation of care for the young, the elderly and handicapped people. Senior Citizens Week is also about having a go. 76-year-old Lake Macquarie identity and ocean racing sailor Albie Bergen makes the most of life.
Anybody, if they wish, can sit home and just watch TV, but I like to just keep myself a little bit active, and of course I like sailing, So to keep myself active, I go sailing.
"10 o'clock this morning, and the only government buses on Newcastle's roads were those carrying State Transit employees to a stop-work meeting. Many commuters weren't aware Newcastle buses were off the road for 4 hours, leaving them stranded.
Badly. I've got a lecture in half an hour, so I've got to get to uni somehow then.
I guess it'll be taxi or something like that.
About 300 government bus employees attended the meeting at Broadmeadow to hear State Transit's Chief Executive John Brew push for workplace reform. Mr Brew says $5.7 million, or 20% of Newcastle Bus's annual operating costs, have to be cut. Otherwise, he says, when the contract for State Transit routes is up for grabs in July, Newcastle buses may miss out.
Why not? Because we lose many millions of dollars and the government has to pay to prop us up.
Mr Brew also held talks with union officials, but the drivers' representative walked out, claiming the fate of Newcastle buses has already been sealed.
There's no two ways about it. The government's hell-bent on privatising it. They're going to use the unions and the workforce as the scapegoat.
Mr Brew rejects that.
No, privatisation's not on the agenda.
Despite that rejection, on Friday, Newcastle Bus's boss, Terry Garrett, made this claim.
The issue is whether it will be run by private or public purse.
Mr Brew has proposed the formation of a committee to look at where cuts can be made. The workers will be meeting again tomorrow to consider the call for workplace reform. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
In Noamunga Crescent, Gwendolyn, cracks in the road were the first hints of damage. Then residents noticed their homes.
This gap wasn't there on Thursday because I swept it out and it was full of dust. Right? And you can't sweep the dust out of the crack, but now it's ½ inch wide.
That's just one of the cracks Ernest and Bea Collins found in their 27-year-old home. They've monitored this one since Saturday. It's widened by 3 millimetres. Neighbour Jack Hanna says his home is no longer level and has a crack running the length of the house.
As I said, it was a hairline crack originally. I just thought it was natural expansion, but then when it started to get as big as this and started to happen to other people as well, then it was apparent that, something disastrous was happening.
Some residents believe the damage may be linked to a loud noise they heard at 3 o'clock on Saturday morning.
Well, it was like an explosion way up the back sort of thing in one. Then also I put it down to, I thought, I wasn't thinking of mine subsidence or anything like that. I thought it was a big heavy truck going around the corner, and that's what I thought it was. So I got up in the morning and saw all this cracks.
Gordon Doniger suffered some of the worst damage in the area. His home almost moved off its foundations. Today, the Mine Subsidence Board launched a house-to-house investigation of the area, assessing damage and trying to piece together its cause.
We don't know the cause of the problem at this stage, and that's being investigated. But there certainly has been underground coal mining here, and the most probable cause is mine subsidence, but that's yet to be determined. So we're going to move straight in and do emergency repairs if that's required.